Business Spotlight, brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.
I'm Sonya. This is Business Spotlight in partnership with Cross Rhythms City Radio and Baba Baboon. Joining me in the studio this week, we've got Daniel Malin and Karen Wilson, who are from Talbots Law. Hello.
Good morning.
How are you?
Morning. We're good, thanks. Yeah,
are you good? You. Before we go anywhere, I'd just like to ask you, what is Talbots Law in brief, and what does Talbots Law do in the local area?
Yeah, no problem. I'll field that one. So, Talbots Law is a full-service law firm, and most people then say, what's a full-service law firm?
Yeah.
Effectively, it's a law firm that has as many specialisms, the full range of specialisms in-house, all under the one roof. So that covers all areas of both personal, so private client law, and also commercial law and business law. We are well known nationally as a property firm as well. So we're the 7th largest property firm in the country, based out of Stoke-on-Trent, which is obviously a really nice thing for the city. Hopefully, we can effectively look after any area of both your personal or your professional life, and we try to stick to a mantra of for law for life. The reason for that is because we can effectively look after a person both personally and professionally from the first time they need a solicitor until the last time, until their family need them as well. Yeah,
so quite vast. And Daniel, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, your sort of title as well as Associate and Marketing Manager.
That's correct,
so that's your role down there at Talbots Law. But Karen, I'm going to come to you now. What is your role? Can you just give us a brief description as well about what you do at Talbots Law?
On a day-to-day basis. So I'm Karen. I am a director at Talbots Law and regional head of the Hanley office. So on a day-to-day basis, my role is I'm seeing clients. I've got a team that I manage of great guys. We've got some solicitors, we've got some paralegals, some support staff, and that my role is to manage those alongside obviously helping clients. As Dan's already touched on, my role is in relation to divorce matters, helping families sort out children. That's a big issue, obviously, when people separate in terms of the children. The money, very important to people as well. We also touch on helping people sort out the businesses when they separate as well, and that sort of cross-references into the other departments that we have. No day is ever the same. I qualified in 1993, and I can honestly say that no day is ever the same in my job.
And it sounds like there's lots going on at Talbots Law in general, but even in your role as well, Karen. And you mentioned there, and if it's okay to ask you maybe to elaborate a little bit, obviously this is Business Spotlight, and when you talked about there, even it's something we've never really gone into here, but when you discuss like a separation in a business and now you help clients obviously with what you can share, how does that process normally look like? Because imagine it's got to be a very sensitive one, a very difficult one at times, but how do you manage that process?
You have got to listen. That's the first thing. You've got to listen to what people tell you when they come in, and you've got to understand what their needs are, because they may come in and say, so-and-so down the road told me to do this, but so-and-so down the road could be in a totally different situation. So we have to respect that every single person that comes through our door, not just for family matters, but for wills and probate business matters, their needs are unique to them, and we need to listen to what they're saying. And then my role, as is many people in my position, is to help fix that problem. It's to look for a solution and take them down the journey, if I can use that word, to get to where they need to be. I'm not going to say want to be, because a lot of people don't want to be where they are, but where they need to be. And I think in my role, it's specific to family. It's explaining to people that they may not like the result, but as long as they can live with it, then we've done our jobs properly.
And then just coming to you there, Daniel, as well. I mean, Karen's talked a lot there, and it's a lot about relationships. And, we've talked a little bit off air as well. But is it Talbots Law as well? Is it more about that relationship and that one-on-one? Is that how the law firm, likes to sort of work with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I'm loath to use the phrase, but actually that account management model, almost that feeling that each client has, whether that's private client or, personal or professional client that we have, what they will have within the business is a trusted point of contact, a person that they feel familiar with, that they feel that they can be completely honest with, that they don't also have to worry about or feel daunted about picking up the phone to, and things like that. And actually, certainly just within my department, we're quite unique in that we employ a new business team of 5 people that are effectively, remarkable in their way, in that they know kind of everything about every area of the law. They can have that conversation with the people that are phoning up. We've got a business development team. We've obviously got a marketing team that we invest in. And what all of that is kind of exactly what you've touched on. All of that is with that focus of driving relationships and creating that real, authentic relationship that a person can have and feel that they have with the business. Because actually, it touches on exactly what Karen's just said. All we all do is listen, and understand the unique and individual complexities of every possible situation. No 2 services that we provide are the same, even if they come out of the same department or out of the same team. Every single person's individual circumstances or professional circumstances will be different and unique to them. So therefore, we believe they should have someone that knows them by first name, by how old their kids are, what's going on in their lives, those sorts of things. Because actually, also, you look at it from the business perspective. That's how business is done best from our perspective. So we invest in a team that effectively are tasked with creating, maintaining and creating those relationships to be as positive as they possibly can be. Also, you've got a point of contact in situations where engaging a law firm, people don't know what they don't know, and they can't possibly. So actually, a lot of people, when they come to us, don't necessarily know exactly what service they need, exactly what Karen's touched on. It remains the same across all of our business services. Actually, the journey often is learning what kind of lawyer you even need, what that service is going to entail, how much will that cost transparently, because that's again one of our points of differentiation. We try to work to transparent fixed costs that are agreed at the outset, not engage. A piece of work is done and then actually while we were doing the work for you, we discovered this little bit that we needed to add on, so we've charged you for that as well. We try to have that fixed fee approach for exactly that, because again, what underpins all of that is the quality of the relationship. We want people to feel that they can trust us. They want us to feel like they're being communicated to transparently and by somebody that actually knows and understands what they need to achieve in order to get to wherever they need to be, whether that's a positive change, so it's where they want to be, or whether it's a less positive change, so getting them to where they need to be back on stable ground.
Do you think then half the battle sometimes is one, whether to approach, a legal firm, but is it that second part, but we don't really know we know we need something, but what is it we need? Is that really, do you see that a lot, and that's like a big challenge for a business?
For sure. And this is why we invest in the team we invest in, because actually most of the phone calls that we take, the first phone call, I should say, that we take from a potential client or even just somebody looking for advice, they're 15-20 minutes long, because the person is looking to basically say, this is what's happened in my life. Do I even need you? And if I do, what do I need? How do I move that forward? Who's available? Who's good? Who's in my area? All those sorts of elements. So actually, from our perspective, the amount of people when we say, oh, that's fantastic to hear from you, how did you hear about Talbots? The amount of people now that say AI or Google, because they've put their situation into ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whoever it might be, or put it into Google, and then they've come up, the result has been, oh, Talbots Law does what you need and they're near you, here's the phone number. But actually, that's so gratifying from our perspective, because what that gives us the opportunity to do at that first point of contact is to have that 15-20 minute real conversation with somebody, really listen to them, understand what has prompted them to call a solicitor, because for most people it's not the first option that you have in a situation. It's not the thing you jump to do. Most people will engage a solicitor when they feel like that's what's necessary. So therefore they're already in most cases at quite a vulnerable place, whether that's because they don't fully know what they need, or they're at a vulnerable place because they don't really want to be making the call in the first place. Our goal, and what we pride ourselves on doing, is having a real conversation, making that feel as less daunting as it possibly can do, and then showing them that it's going to be okay, and that they can leave it to us. We'll do the bit that we're good at, and we'll get them to where they need to be.
That's absolutely. I absolutely reiterate that. It's so important. When clients do come to us after they've been to the new business team, when they come down to us and they've had that positive experience when they've picked the phone up and said, don't really know what I'm doing, I don't know where to go, I'm a bit scared. They need that reassurance and they need that direction. And then they're so much more at ease because it's scary, isn't it? Comes to this, it is scary, and it's not something people generally want to do unless there's a positive for them. But just to be listened to is so important.
And then, from your experience, Karen, as well, being in the industry, and even yours as well, Daniel, but I'm just going to ask, and you both might want to answer this, but how have you seen, the changes of the industry over the years, whether it's working with a business and how their challenges have perhaps changed as well. I mean, what sort of main changes have you actually seen in the industry?
I think for us, and you could obviously deal with the business side far more probably than I can, but for us, it's the challenges of the changing landscape of what's happening in terms of finances. So for us, dealing with members of the public, there's been a massive shift in terms of how we have to conduct our work, because there's a lot of people now that choose and can represent themselves. So we're dealing with a lot of what we call a litigant person, somebody who's representing themselves. So we have to adapt our way of dealing with things to realise that we're dealing with somebody who's not legally qualified. We've got challenges from our own clients in terms of course, meeting costs. Yeah, because it's never a particularly cheap experience, unfortunately, to instruct a solicitor. But as Dan said, we have to manage that. We have to meet their expectations. We have to ensure that they know what they're doing and what they're having to pay for. So for us, that's a very different challenge in terms of the landscape of what we're dealing with.
This reliance on a solicitor for the early stage information you don't necessarily need to go to your solicitor at the earliest point in a change, whether that's personal or professional anymore. You can do so much of that research online. And actually a lot of what my team do is creating valuable content that can be accessed easily, whether that's blogs, whether that's social media, whether that's, written resources and, leaving coffee table books places and things like that. But just ensuring that somebody that we would suggest might become a client at some point down the road, at the first point, actually, are they armed with all the information they need to make an educated decision and an educated kind of step forward? So I would suggest the change in the industry, if you like, is that actually law firms, there are so many options now. Nobody's really bound by locality. Nobody's really bound by almost that point of I just don't know anything, because actually there are online only services, there are localized services, there are all the different kinds of services that will match up with what a person needs. Similarly, the information that a person needs in order to decide what they need, if that makes sense, it is more available. There will still be the role of the lawyer is still an incredibly technical one, and therefore that's the point where we need to ensure that we have provided enough transparency about the way that we work, and therefore are we the right fit for the client in the first place. But also the education element, if we're the business that has provided that information, made them feel reassured, made them feel like they're learning more about their own situation, that trust is being built from a distance. We'll never see it happening in the dead of night and remotely and all those sorts of things. But actually all we're trying to do is build that bridge of trust from a distance, so that when the person then eventually reaches the point where they feel they need to engage the solicitor, they've already got one that they kind of trust because they've already learned a little bit from us and those sorts of things. So I would suggest that the challenge for us as a law firm, I guess, is just ensuring that we're at the forefront of providing education without an agenda. Do you know what I mean? Like just offering that advice and that insight and as much education as we can without the expectation that person then becomes a client, because it's not about that. It's just about ensuring that the person has the information they need to make an informed decision about whatever it is they need to change, positively or negatively. So I would suggest, it's probably the cliche answer that most businesses will give, but the emergence of, how far back do we go? Email and the internet at the end of the 90s.
Exactly,
but certainly now with AI, the importance of a search engine optimization, so being able to be found on Google, those sorts of things. Our job has become so centered around that, because it's just so important to ensure that we're at the forefront of providing as much as we can long before somebody ever becomes a client.
And that's it, isn't it? It's about that trust, like you say, with anything in business. And like you can find resources. If you Google this, you can Google that, but sometimes it is knowing again what is the truth, the facts, what is authentic and everything. So I totally get your pain with all of that as well, I really do. But I just want to touch on, because before we finish, I really would like you to just go into as well, because we did talk about it off air, but a little bit of the history of Talbots Law, because I know it's been going for years and hundreds and years and this and the other, and now it's expanded, but also again the history and the connection with Stoke-on-Trent and North Staffordshire. If you can just touch on that for me.
I like to. It's part of the fun of my job, so having the privilege to discuss something that we're all genuinely really proud of. So Talbots has been active as a law firm since 1828, so we're approaching 200 years of Talbots Law. So William Talbot opened the doors of his family home in 1828 once he was admitted to the role of solicitors in Kidderminster, which is a town in Worcestershire, just on the Black Country border. And he opened his office to do property transactions, things like that. The business stayed as kind of a family run and family led business for over 100 years, at which point the Talbot family moved to a different location in Kidderminster, which is still the Talbots Kidderminster office today. So if anybody ever feels like a history trip, we've got the safe from 1919 where the deposits were kept. Yeah, exactly. It's something we're incredibly proud of, and we never try to stray too far from certainly the values that were instilled from the earliest point of Talbots Law coming into existence. There was a change of ownership in the early 90s, and that prompted a little bit of growth. That was a more commercially driven change of ownership. The Talbot family moved away from the business. They decided, they'd taken it to the point they wanted to take it to. So a change of ownership happened in the 90s. And then 30 years later, so 2021, which ties in with the expansion that you touched on, in 2021, we became the first law firm in the West Midlands to become employee-owned. So there's less than 50 employee-owned law firms in the whole country, of which we're comfortably the largest, which is a real privilege to be able to say. But even 5 years ago, which was when I joined as well, we're not suggesting there's a correlation, but I'm not suggesting that's not the case either. But so we were at 4 offices, about 250 staff, whereas today we sit at 19 offices and closer to 650 staff, and employee owners, I should say. And actually, the way that we've been able to do that is through those values that have stood the test of time. We build relationships, we build trust, we deliver genuine expertise, and we help people. We don't treat anything transactionally. It's if you need us, we're there, and we'll do the best job we can for you. If you don't need us, please promise we'll tell you, and please don't use us until you actually need to, that sort of thing. And that trust, it carries weight with people. And once we then, when we expand into different communities, those values seem to resonate with the communities that we then become a part of. We've also been incredibly lucky to grow through acquisition, which is how I'm coming on to Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire, because if Talbots is something we're proud of from 1828 and all those values, Tinsdale's goes, to a different level entirely. So Tinsdale's has been an active law, or was an active law firm from 1580. So the Leek office of Talbots Law, it contains the courtroom that was used in the 50s. Oh, sorry, Gary. No, I'm happy to. Amazing, I'll just get excited talking about it. So to transfer over, but. If again, while you're on the history tour of Kidderminster, if you want to drive 2 hours up to Leek, the courtroom that sits in our Leek office has been active since the 1600s as a courtroom. We obviously now use it for slightly different things. We don't hold trials in our own office. However, that history is so important to the town. It's so important to the brand. And Tinsdale's, as I say, built the most phenomenal business in Staffordshire over and East Cheshire over the 500 years that they were, aligned with people, generating that trust, building those relationships, and that's what made the acquisition such a natural fit and such a natural alignment. Tinsdale's wanted to provide the opportunity for their team to have access to greater opportunities, progression, all those sorts of things that Talbots was in a very privileged position to be able to offer at that point in time where sometimes paths cross in the best way possible, and actually the values aligned. The team are phenomenal. So it's such a privilege for us to be able to move into the Staffordshire region via Tinsdale's as the bridge, because actually from our perspective Tinsdale's were top of the game, exactly what we would hope to try and create from scratch in Staffordshire. Tinsdale's had already been doing that for 500 years. So the opportunity to align the two businesses, bring them together, and learn from each other. We've learned so much from Tinsdale's in the short time that we've had the opportunity to work with them, and actually now Talbots Staffordshire, if you like, is just going from strength to strength, and that's no coincidence. That's a direct result of what we were lucky enough to be able to inherit and to learn from and to work with.
It sounds amazing. And Karen, Daniel, I'm sure we could carry on talking. I'm sure there's going to be another episode of Business Spotlight. Welcome you back in the near future. But for now, I just want to say thank you for coming in, and I hope you've enjoyed Business Spotlight.
Thank you.
Yeah, loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Daniel Malin and Karen Wilson from Talbots Law here on Business Spotlight with me, Sonya Farrell.
Business Spotlight, shining a light on our local business community. Brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.